Okay, so you sent over some really interesting stuff about the future of pharmaceutical marketing.
Yeah.
Especially all this talk about possible pharma tariffs and maybe even a ban on TV ads for prescription drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And we really want to dive into that today. I mean, these changes could totally transform how pharmaceutical companies connect with doctors and patients.
For sure.
Like, how do they actually reach people if things really change this much?
Right. And it's not just about reaching them.
Yeah.
It's about doing it effectively in a completely different landscape.
Exactly. So let's break it all down, starting with these pharma tariffs everyone's talking about.
Okay.
So just so we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
What exactly are we talking about when we say pharma tariffs?
Well, at the most basic level, they're taxes governments put on medications brought in from other countries.
Oh, okay.
And you know what's really interesting to think about is the ripple effect they can have.
Okay.
You know, your sources highlighted how these tariffs directly jack up the cost of brand name drugs, which of course squeezes profit margins.
Right.
And that can lead to higher prices for patients.
Oh, wow.
And then that trickles down and potentially shrinks the money they have for marketing.
So it's not just the drug companies taking a financial hit.
Right.
It sounds like this could really impact people who actually rely on these medications.
Absolutely. And it's kind of a global thing.
Yeah.
These tariffs, they often pop up because of trade wars, international politics, or even a country trying to boost its own drug manufacturing.
Interesting.
So for someone working in pharma marketing, keeping an eye on these big picture trends is crucial because things can change so fast.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like a really complex web of factors.
It is. It is.
Now, the stuff we looked at specifically mentioned Eliquis Humira and Keytruda.
Yeah.
Some pretty big names. What could tariffs realistically mean for well-known drugs like these?
Well, if tariffs make it pricier to get these drugs into a country, it could really shake up their place in the market. You know, one of the articles you sent pointed to a study, and it suggested that if the price jumped, say, 10% because of tariffs, people might be 20% less likely to stick with their medication.
Wow, that's a pretty significant drop.
It is, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
If your medication suddenly becomes way more expensive, it's hard to keep taking it.
Totally. And it's not just about people who are already on these meds, right?
Right.
It could also make these big brand name drugs less attractive compared to options made domestically.
Absolutely.
Or even drugs from places without those tariffs.
Exactly.
So we could see a real shift in market share.
Yeah, and that's where things get interesting for pharma marketers.
Okay, so we're talking higher prices, potentially people not taking their meds as prescribed, and tougher competition.
Yeah.
What does that mean for their approach to digital advertising?
Well, digital advertising becomes even more important in this scenario.
Really?
Yeah, because it's a more nimble way to respond to these economic pressures.
Oh.
Marketers will need to be laser focused on where they put their digital ad dollars.
Yeah.
Making sure they're getting the biggest bang for their buck.
So every dollar counts even more now.
Exactly.
And one of the articles you sent over talked about the value of working with specialized networks, like e-healthcare solutions, in situations like this.
Right.
Why would that be a good move when tariffs are in the picture?
Networks like that, they have a deep understanding of healthcare.
Okay.
And they offer really targeted advertising options. So pharma companies can connect with the right people with the right message.
So it's not just about reaching anyone, it's about reaching the people most likely to be affected by these changes.
That's exactly right. Especially when prices might be changing because of tariffs.
Makes sense.
It's about optimizing every single ad dollar.
Right. And the articles you sent me also stressed the need for educational digital content.
Yes.
Why would that be so important now?
Well, if tariffs lead to price hikes, it's even more important to explain to both patients and doctors why the medication is valuable, to address concerns they might have about the cost and how they can get the treatment.
Right.
Providing good information can help show that the brand is committed to patient well-being.
Yeah, like we're here to help, even though the price might have gone up.
Exactly.
So based on everything we've looked at,
yeah.
What are some key recommendations for pharma marketers dealing with all this tariff stuff?
Well, one of the biggest things is being upfront about pricing.
Transparency.
Yes. Explaining clearly why prices might be adjusted because of tariffs.
Okay.
That can build trust with patients and doctors.
It makes sense. Nobody likes to feel like they're being kept in the dark.
Right. And another important strategy is diversifying supply chains.
Oh, okay. What does that mean exactly?
So pharma companies can work with their procurement teams and explore sourcing ingredients or manufacturing from different places.
Okay.
Maybe regions that aren't as affected by tariffs.
Yeah. So spreading things out a bit.
Yeah, that way they can keep prices competitive.
It's like not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
I can also see how data analysis would be really important in this kind of unpredictable situation.
It's absolutely essential.
How so?
Using data to model different tariff scenarios can give you incredibly valuable insights.
Okay.
That way marketers can kind of predict how prices, demand, and competition might be affected.
So they can plan ahead instead of just reacting to changes as they happen.
Right. And the articles also talked about strengthening patient assistance programs.
Now, why would that be so important in a market impacted by tariffs?
Well, when drug prices go up because of tariffs, affordability can become a big issue for a lot of people.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But having strong patient assistance programs can help bridge that financial gap.
Okay, so it can help people get the medications they need even if the price has gone up.
Exactly. And that not only helps patients, but also builds loyalty to the brand.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, so tariffs are definitely a big piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears now and talk about the other potential game changer.
Okay.
This possible ban on pharma ads on TV.
Right.
This feels like a huge change.
It is a big one.
Especially in the U.S., where we're so used to seeing those ads everywhere.
Yeah, for decades, direct-to-consumer advertising on TV has been like a staple of pharma marketing here.
Totally. Those commercials are practically part of the background noise at this point.
They are. And your sources remind us how much they've been used to raise awareness and tell people about all sorts of conditions and treatments.
Like cholesterol meds. And even those new GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic everyone's talking about.
Right.
So why is there all this talk about banning them now?
Well, there are several concerns driving this conversation.
Okay.
One of the main issues is the cost of prescription drugs. Critics say that all that money spent on TV ads pushes up overall drug prices.
Which ends up hurting consumers.
Exactly. There are also concerns about whether those ads are always accurate.
Oh, okay.
And whether they might be misleading. And some people worry that they could lead to patients requesting specific drugs.
Oh, interesting.
That might not be the best fit for them.
I see. So there's a lot to consider there.
There is.
All right. So if TV advertising for pharmaceuticals is restricted, what would be the main alternative for reaching patients and doctors?
Based on your sources, it seems like digital marketing would become even more central.
Okay.
Pharma companies would likely focus more on things like programmatic advertising to target specific demographics and online behaviors.
So really honing in on specific groups of people.
Exactly. And they'd probably have a bigger presence on social media platforms.
Okay, like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn.
Yeah, to engage with patient communities and healthcare professionals.
And they'd probably invest more in paid search too, right?
Absolutely, using relevant keywords that people are searching for online.
So meeting people where they already are? The articles also mentioned the value of native advertising on those trusted medical websites. Yeah. What's the advantage of that approach?
Well, with native advertising, you can present sponsored content. That blends in with the regular editorial content of the website.
So it's not like a big flashy banner ad that screams advertisement.
Right. And one of your sources on digital marketing trends said that native ads on medical websites get way more clicks than traditional banner ads.
Interesting.
They said click-through rates could be like 50% higher.
Wow, that's significant.
It is. And this approach can be really effective for building awareness and providing good information in a way that feels less like a sales pitch.
Which is especially important when you're dealing with all the regulations in the pharmaceutical industry.
Exactly.
Now, beyond just where these ads are placed, it seems like the actual content would need to change too if TV ads go away.
Oh yeah, for sure.
How so?
Content marketing would become crucial, both for teaching patients about their health conditions and for keeping doctors up to date on the latest treatments.
Okay.
Think about creating blog content that's optimized for search engines.
So that it pops up when people search for information.
Exactly.
Smart.
And using video marketing on platforms like YouTube.
Okay.
Or even TikTok.
TikTok really for pharma?
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
Huh. Interesting.
And email marketing is still a great way to send targeted updates to doctors.
So it's about finding new ways to get that information out there?
That's right.
The sources also talked about partnering with influencers and doctors.
Yes. That's becoming increasingly important.
Why is that?
Well, people tend to trust doctors and patient advocates more than traditional ads.
Makes sense.
So collaborating with respected healthcare professionals can really boost a brand's credibility.
Okay.
You could have healthcare influencers on social media sharing their perspectives.
Yeah.
Or podcasts and webinars featuring experts. You could even partner with patient advocacy groups to share real patient stories.
So it's about leveraging that human connection and trust.
Exactly.
It sounds like this requires a much more targeted approach than just running a TV commercial.
Absolutely.
And it seems like data would play a huge role.
You're right. Data-driven advertising will be essential.
In what way?
Well, with limitations on traditional tracking methods.
Yeah.
Pharma companies will probably focus more on gathering their own data.
Oh, okay.
Like information from patient CRM systems, behavioral data from websites and apps.
Okay.
And they'll use AI to analyze all of that data.
So they can understand patient needs preferences and how they engage with the brand.
Right. It's all about getting a clearer picture of the patient.
Now, what about retargeting?
Yeah.
That's a common digital marketing tactic.
It is.
But are there any special considerations for pharma?
Oh, definitely. There are regulations to think about.
Of course.
So the focus would likely be on retargeting strategies that are compliant.
Okay, like what?
Well, there's contextual advertising, where ads are shown next to relevant health content.
So if you're reading an article about diabetes, you might see an ad for a diabetes medication.
Exactly.
Okay.
And there's lookalike audience targeting.
What's that?
It's about finding groups of people who are similar to existing patients.
Okay.
But without using any sensitive personal health information.
So you're not targeting individuals directly, but finding people who share similar characteristics.
Right. And then there's geofencing.
I've heard of that.
That's where you can target people within specific locations.
Like maybe near a hospital or a doctor's office.
Exactly. But it has to be done in a way that respects patient privacy.
So there are definitely ethical considerations with all of this.
Absolutely.
The articles also mention leveraging real-world evidence and data storytelling.
Yeah, that's a really interesting area.
How so?
It's a way to communicate value and build trust.
Okay.
Especially when you might not be able to rely on broad TV commercials anymore. Instead of just making marketing claims.
Yeah.
Pharma companies can use data from how patients actually use their medications in real life.
Okay.
That's called real-world evidence.
I see.
And they can combine that with patient stories and insights from doctors.
So you're painting a picture with data and real experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can showcase clinical trial results.
Yeah.
And share stories of how patients have benefited from the medication.
That makes it feel more relatable and believable.
Right. And it can build confidence among both patients and doctors.
Okay. So we've talked about tariffs and advertising restrictions. But what about connecting with consumers more directly?
Yeah.
How can pharma companies strengthen those relationships without relying on traditional advertising?
Well, it's about being more interactive and engaging with patients throughout their healthcare journey.
Okay.
The rise of telemedicine is creating a lot of opportunities here.
Interesting.
Pharma companies can partner with telehealth platforms and online pharmacies. They can integrate patient education portals into those platforms.
So people can get doctor-approved information right there in the app.
Exactly. And they could even sponsor virtual health consultations.
Like a sponsored online doctor visit.
Yeah. Focused on education and managing specific conditions.
So it's like integrating the information directly into the patient's healthcare experience.
Right, and even without TV ads, pharma companies can still run disease awareness campaigns.
Okay.
Through things like social media challenges, interactive quizzes, or partnering with public health organizations to share digital resources.
So it's about educating and empowering patients in new ways.
Exactly, and on the physician engagement side,
building
relationships with doctors through platforms like Sermo Doximity and LinkedIn.
Right.
Sponsoring online CME programs.
Continuing medical education.
Right. Hosting webinars with key opinion leaders.
Okay.
And using AI-driven detailing platforms.
What are those?
They're digital tools that personalize the information given to doctors based on their specialty and prescribing habits.
That's pretty sophisticated.
It is. It's all about staying ahead of the curve.
So it seems like pharma marketers are facing some big challenges, these potential tariffs that could affect prices and competition and the possibility of a TV ad ban, which means finding new ways to connect with people.
You got it.
It sounds like adaptability and a proactive approach are going to be crucial.
They're absolutely key.
Pharma companies need to be transparent about pricing.
Yes.
Rely on data to make decisions, and always put the patient first.
Right. It's all about the patient.
It sounds like a time of huge change and innovation in pharma marketing.
It is. It is.
So considering all of this, the tariffs, the advertising restrictions, the growing importance of digital engagement. What are some completely new and maybe unexpected approaches that pharma marketers might need to explore?
That's a great question.
To effectively reach their audiences and ensure good outcomes for patients in the years to come.
I think we're just scratching the surface of what's possible.
Yeah, it's not just about finding a new way to deliver a message.
Right.
It's about rethinking the whole relationship between pharma companies and the people who use their products.
Absolutely.
This has been a really insightful conversation.
It has.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with me.
My pleasure.
I'm sure our listeners will find this incredibly valuable as they navigate this evolving landscape.
I hope so.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
See you next time.
And be sure to check back for more deep dives into the future of pharma.